It is 2025, our first episode of Movies You Missed podcast, coming at you for the new year, episode 142. Hopefully everybody had a magical new year, all your acquaintances were forgot, and Auld Lang Syne and all that madness manure that everybody likes to sing on New Year's. We are here to discuss some fun movies, and looking forward to this year of 2025 at Movies You Missed podcast. Vee, how are you this January day?
I'm doing great, John. I, too, am excited for the upcoming year of Movies You Missed podcast episodes and all the movies we will pick, including, of course, my favorite episodes, which are our Oscar recap and 2024 recap episodes.
Oh, yes. The 2024 recap episode is going to be awesome, as will the Oscar recap episode, too. Both also my favorite episodes, because we've watched so many movies, and we'll have watched a lot of Oscar nominees by then, and it'll be a fun one. I'm looking forward to the Oscars. I'm kind of excited for Conan O'Brien to host.
I kind of am too, but my all-time faves will still be Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
They were pretty good. Billy Crystal is still my top favorite host of the Oscars, most definitely.
I stand corrected. You're right, though. He was my favorite too. I also
like Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin. I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, they were really good. And I will always remember, I was like 8 years old, maybe, and Billy Crystal came out on stage in the Hannibal Lecter mask being rolled out.
Yeah.
And that'll just
great.
be always seared in my brain as an Oscars memory.
That was a good one. I loved all of his opening songs, too, that he meshed all the movies that were nominated in. Just so awesome. There was one that I'll never forget where he was dressed as Mrs. Robinson and, singing Tonight, Tonight. And that was always so fucking funny. And speaking of Billy Crystal, we will mention him for my pick this week because there is a little blip of Billy Crystal in my pick for this week. But before we do that, if you are brand new to Movies You Missed podcast for the year 2025, welcome. We are John and Vee. We have been friends for 25 years. We were in the entertainment industry for a collective 25 years as well. And now we are here to discuss movies that have flown under the radar, movies that might have been forgotten, and movies that we just love and want to reintroduce people to. So welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. I think it's time to get into your pick for the first episode of 2025. What do you say?
I'd say let's do it. Let's buckle up and get ready for our first picks of 2025. However, since it is 2025, I think we need to update our math because we have certainly been friends for over 25 years now.
Oh, solid point. Solid point.
I think it's more like 27.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I think it is 27 years now. That's madness.
Giving away our ages, being over 30, short from 40.
Yes, even though my birthday just happened and now I'm closer to 40 and farther away from 30.
Yes, we can only keep that saying alive on our podcast for a little while longer, but we'll keep saying it until then.
Yes, we will.
To kick off this week and to kick off our very first episode of 2025, we always like to start with a bang here at Movies You Missed podcast. And this week we picked action movies with amazing car chases.
Oh, yeah.
So we both picked a Fast and Furious movie.
Hey! Our first Fast and the Furious episode coming at ya.
No, it is not our first Fast and Furious episode. In fact, that will never happen on this podcast.
I don't think it will.
No.
Because they're not movies anybody's missed. The whole world over has seen the Fast and Furious movies.
And I haven't missed seeing them since I saw them for the first time, so it's fine.
That is hilarious. I only own 2 of them, so.
I think that's the correct amount, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Instead, this week we chose 2 great films that I think are pretty underrated, especially mine. Yours got a little bit more traction. I know a lot of people on the internet talk about it, but in general, with the public, I think these can be classified as underrated films.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're going in chronological order this week.
Yeah.
So this week I picked the 1998 Robert De Niro starring Ronin.
Oh, yes.
I did not see this movie in theaters when it came out. One, I was too young, but also because it's an internationally made movie, it didn't have a ton of traction in the US, which I'll get into later when we talk about the box office numbers. And so instead, I watched it later on, I believe on DVD, when my sister introduced me to it a few years after that. So I've been watching this movie on and off for the last 20 years or so.
Awesome.
It's one of my favorite car chase movies. I've always really enjoyed it. And I also really love Robert De Niro's turn in this movie. he's a lot more subdued and a lot more badass, I think, than his mobster movies, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, he's always kind of threatening and he seems kind of menacing in mobster movies, but in this one he seems more skilled and just more of a badass in a technical way, which I really like.
I'm with you on that for sure.
So this movie takes place entirely in France. It is an English language movie, so don't worry about it. A lot of French is spoken with subtitles, obviously, but most of the movie is in fact in English. Robert De Niro leads it. Jean Reno is also a leading actor in it, which get into his credits in a little while. Love him.
Oh yeah.
And this movie starts off with a mix of characters meeting at a bar. And I love the exposition setup because we get unique introductions to each character that really show us the type of people each of them are. And Robert De Niro's character specifically cases this restaurant. He puts a gun in the back. He opens up one of the back doors. And you can see this man has done this before. He's highly skilled and clearly highly trained. But we don't know what's going on besides that. These few characters meet in a bar and then they get in a van to go to a warehouse. And this is where we get to know him a little bit better. Robert De Niro plays Sam. Jean Reno plays Vincent. And Sean... I love the joke. You either call him Sean Bon or Sheen Bean. Like, why is it Sean Bean? They're spelled the same. It doesn't make sense.
So true.
Sean Bean and also Stellan Skarsgård are some of the men that have been assembled, and it turns out they're going to do a heist job. It turns out these guys are going to steal a case. What's in it? We don't know. Currently, the men who have the case are arms dealers. This isn't a government heist. There are no... Technically, they're just stealing from bad guys, so...
Yeah.
We're okay there. And Natasha Meckelholm, and apologies if I completely butchered your name, she plays Deirdre, and she's actually leading this heist and managing it. She actually is part of the IRA. And so these guys have all been hired by the IRA to steal this case. And as the planning goes on, we get to know exactly the skill level of all these guys. And I love how throughout this whole movie, as an observer, you're only that.
Yep.
You don't know anything more about this heist that any of these guys do. There's a lot of great exposition, but a lot of details are held back from the audience. This feels very much like a spy movie in a lot of ways, in that you're always kind of guessing, you're always trying to complete the puzzle, you're always trying to fill in gaps of what exactly is going on. I love the way this story is told.
I'm a big fan of it too.
And so the planning for this heist continues, and they buy some illegal weapons because this is France, and all these guys set up to steal this case. And what precedes is a high-octane heist movie, super badass action, incredible car chase sequences, really cool storylines, great acting, interesting characters, all in the backdrop of beautiful France. And God, Europe's cities are so much prettier than the United States.
Yeah, a lot of them really are.
I loved all the locations in this movie. It's a fascinating film. You'll want to watch it multiple times in order to fill in more gaps that you missed the first time around. This is a very fun movie. There's violence in it. It's not super gory, though.
No.
The body count is only 34 in this movie.
Only.
That's not that much compared to a lot of action movies we watch.
No, I know, you're right. No, it's still funny. It's like, well, there's only like 50 people. It's like in Doctor Strangelove, I was like, only 10, 20 million people killed tops. You know, it's like, oh, only 34. But no, yeah, you're right. I have only seen this movie one other time, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I thought that there was a lot more, I guess, death in this movie.
Mm-hmm. More cars are destroyed in this movie than people.
Hell yeah.
We'll get into that in a minute. But that is about as far as I'll go for the plot, because we do not do spoilers here at Movies You Missed, and this plot is really intricate and really fascinating. You'll have a lot of fun figuring this out. I highly recommend this film. Like I said, I've loved it and watched it on and off for the last 20 plus years. I know, John, you hadn't seen it in quite a long time, and this is, I think, only your second time watching it, so I'm very interested to see what you thought of the film now that you're a little bit older, and I really hope that you enjoyed your revisit.
Yes, this was my second time. I want to say my first time was within the 20 years ago range.
Okay.
I remember I watched it on DVD. I rented it from Hollywood Video, and I watched it on my computer because my computer had a DVD player at the time. I remember thinking the movie was okay, but I was a little underwhelmed when I first saw it. And after now revisiting it, I mean, there were things about it I liked, but overall I was just kind of like, yeah, that's an all right movie. You know, a lot of people go nuts over Ronin, and when it ended, I was like, I don't know what everybody's going so nuts about. But this time around was a little bit better, maybe because I'm a little older and I have a little bit more patience, and you know, and I was, I think, anticipating some crazy, intense action caper from the get-go and not a whole lot of dialogue. So watching it this time around, I was able to finally sink my teeth into the story and get into it, and I liked the movie. I don't know how many other times I'd watch it, though. I don't think it's going to be one of those movies where I'm like, oh, let's watch Ronin, like how I am with a lot of other action movies and heist movies and stuff like this in this genre. But it was enjoyable. I love Jean Reno. I love, obviously, Robert De Niro. I remember texting you at one point. I was like, does Sean Bean ever not play a pussy-ass bitch? Like, nothing against Sean Bean, but, I mean, when he's Boromir, like, kind of the same thing. For a while, watching this movie, I wanted him at one point to be like, this is a gift, like, kind of like how he does in Lord of the Rings, or pull out a Game of Thrones line or something like that. And I love Natasha. I think she's great. I wish she was in more movies. I don't know if she's still acting, but she's going to be in a future pick of mine called Solaris with George Clooney. She's fantastic in. I love her in The Truman Show and a couple other movies that I've seen her in. She's great. And Skarsgård, of course, I completely did not know that he was in this movie because I didn't know who he was back when I first saw this movie. But overall, I would give the movie like a B-. Like, definitely a lot of fun. Great chase sequences, a lot of good action, and again, I was able to sink my teeth into it a little bit more, and it's definitely enjoyable. I'm glad that I was able to revisit it. So thank you for having it on the podcast.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And yes, I would actually put it in a weird subgenre of heist drama movies, because think about The Long Kiss Goodnight that I picked a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
Total action movie, right? Action sequences left, right, and center. This has 2 giant set pieces of car chases, but otherwise, it's not a huge action movie. There are a couple of action scenes, hand-to-hand combats involved, but like you said, it's very dialogue-driven, so it toes this weird line, and maybe that's why it's a bit underrated, and maybe that's why it fell under the radar actually when it came out in the United States, is because it's not a drama, but it's also not an action movie either. It's right in the middle, which I enjoy, but yeah, you're not going to get hyped up for this movie like you would a purely action-driven film that's got fights left, right, and center, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you were willing to revisit it and give it another shot.
Me too.
And like I said, it is very dialogue-driven, and there are some really great lines in this film. It's actually surprisingly funny, and it's surprising because it's Robert De Niro who's funny in this film.
Yeah, exactly. I guess this was like one of his first comedic kind of turns after so many years. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, and he's just very witty. He's very dry. It's very deadpan whenever he delivers a line. But in the beginning, Sean Bean is asking him, like, oh, have you seen a lot of action? Like, have you killed anybody before?
Yeah.
And Robert De Niro is like, I hurt somebody's feelings once. And at one point, he gets hurt, and he's talking to Jean Reno and then says, okay, I'm going to pass out now.
Yeah, that was great. I love that.
Yeah, and it's Robert De Niro, a lot more action-oriented than I'm used to. I mean, yeah, he's a mobster in so many movies, but you don't see him exacting punishment or revenge on people. It's usually his sidekick Joe Pesci's job, right?
Right.
So seeing Robert De Niro not only hold my favorite gun of all time, the 1911, but he also holds a bazooka and a giant machine gun, too.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Pretty badass to see him do these things. He was running really well. I was like, man, this is kind of like an older Tom Cruise vibe I'm getting. It's actually kind of cool.
It is pretty awesome.
He definitely fit into the action role a lot better than I thought he could, and he was very believable throughout the whole film.
Everybody was. Everybody sold the movie very well.
Yeah, they really did, and we've talked about Robert De Niro before on this podcast. We do really love him. Of course, he's Robert De Niro. He's very recognizable. We've picked 3 other movies of his. In episode 4, he was in Stardust as Captain William Shakespeare, one of my all-time favorite roles of his. Actually, I've only picked movies of his, now that I realize
I was going to say, I think it was only you.
Yeah, it's only been me.
I've done a Robert De Niro movie yet.
Yeah, okay. So
Goodfellas is coming up, though, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Oh, God. I'm just going to pick Casino with it and just be a
might as well.
Bloody mess of it. I can't ever watch Casino again because of the cornfield scene.
Oh, yeah.
Way too traumatizing. I was way too young to watch that film when I watched it. In episode 60, I picked Heat, my all-time favorite heist movie.
Yes.
And in episode 106, I picked The Untouchables.
Oh, yeah.
Which John absolutely hated. It's his most hated pick of mine, actually.
It is my most hated pick in the entirety of the podcast so far.
Which is a claim to fame in and of itself.
Yes, of course. And you've got 2 or 3 on me that you absolutely hated.
I do, yeah. 3 right now, because I hated Monkey Bone, I hated Waking Life, and I really hated Hamlet, too.
Yeah, well, at least they're, not back to back. So.
No, they weren't back to back. Thank God, or else I might have never recorded with you again. It's okay. At some point, I'll put We're the Millers on the list, and then we'll have a really good discussion.
Yay.
So other than Robert De Niro, as you said, everybody's really good in this film, and they are. Jean Reno, who a lot of us, I think, would recognize because we think he's the French guy.
Right.
Because he was in Leon the Professional.
Yep.
A movie that will certainly be on the podcast at some point in the future.
Hell yeah.
He's been in the new Pink Panther movies with Steve Martin.
Oh, I've not seen any of those. I've heard they're great, though.
Yeah, I saw the first one right after it came out. I thought it was funny. He was in Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, one of the only Godzilla movies I've ever seen, which is a total bummer because it's the worst Godzilla movie ever made, so I'm told.
It's really bad, but it's a lot of fun, too. It's just so miscast. But yeah, Jean Reno's in that one, and Matthew Broderick. I had no idea why they got Matthew Broderick for that movie.
He's a
I guess
terrible
nobody
actor.
else was available.
No.
And it was like, oh, let's just get Matthew Broderick.
I've never been a fan of his. Ever.
I really haven't either, except for Simba, but it's still, he's I don't know, he just never seems like he's emoting anything. And that's why I just really do not find Ferris Bueller's Day Off to be the greatest movie that so many other people think it is.
Agreed. Jean Reno is also in the first Mission Impossible movie. He was in French Kiss.
That's right. He is.
Yeah.
He's in French Kiss, too.
Yeah.
With Meg Ryan and Chris Klein.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
And he's also in the original French version of La Femme Nikita, which I was a huge fan of. The American version, which is Point of No Return.
Oh, yeah. Is that Bridget Fonda?
With Bridget Fonda, exactly.
Ah.
And also the La Femme Nikita series that was out in the 90s. I love that one, too.
Oh, yeah. I never watched that one, but or Point of No Return, but maybe I should.
Oh, Point of No Return it's already on the list, so there we go.
Oh, perfect.
But Jean Reno is not French.
What?
I know, that's what I said.
You gotta be kidding me.
Nope, he was born Juan Moreno y Herrera Jimenez in Casablanca, Morocco.
Whoa! Casablanca!
Yeah, to Spanish parents.
Holy shit. Whoa, this is a revelation.
Yes, Jean Reno moved to France at 17.
Wow.
Which is why he speaks French so well and has a French accent. But yeah, mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's really nuts.
Total news to me.
Crazy. You think you know a guy.
I know, right? Stellan Skarsgård is another member of the team. He plays Gregor.
Oh, yeah.
He is the professor who's a pretty giant asshole in Good Will Hunting.
Oh, I don't remember him in Good Will Hunting. I've seen that movie one time. I don't remember a lot of it.
I don't like that film. Maybe I was too young to watch it and I should give it a chance and revisit it. But yeah, I've never really been a huge fan of it either.
Yeah, I have. Maybe we should just revisit it.
Yeah.
See what's up.
We'll sit down on your couch one of these days and watch it together and see if we like it.
Yeah, why not? Good idea.
Every time we hate a line or think a scene is over dramatic, we take a drink.
Yes.
Just turn it into a drinking game.
I am down for that.
If we're sober by the end of it, it's a good film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stellan Skarsgård is also in Deep Blue Sea.
Oh, nice.
He's the guy in the stretcher. Oh, God. I love that movie. He's also in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies as Bootstrap Bill.
That's right, yes.
He's in Thor and the MCU as Dr. Selvig.
Oh, yeah, that's right, with Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings.
Exactly, he's on that
That's
scientific team.
Yeah.
He's in the American David Fincher version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and good God, he's so amazing in that film. Oh my
wow.
God.
Never saw that one.
Yeah,
I know we've mentioned that before.
We've talked about it. I think we just need to do it, which is a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo episode and have the two versions paired with each other.
I watched all three of the Noomi Rapace ones, and those were really hard watches. But
they are.
They're good movies.
Mm-hmm. Back to Ronin, the rest of the crew includes Sean Bean, as we said. He plays Spence. He is also Alex Trevelyan in GoldenEye, a future pick of mine, a James Bond film.
Sweet. Hell yeah.
And as you said, he plays Boromir in Lord of the Rings. God, he's such a bitch in that movie.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But he redeems himself, of course.
Yeah, of course. But Sean Bean's also in National Treasure, Game of Thrones as Ned Stark.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most shocking episodes of TV that I have ever seen, and my dad as well.
The end of season 1?
The end of season 1, man. That turned television on its head when it premiered. It was so shocking and awesome.
Oh, yeah. So insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the end of that. Yeah, I was just like, no. And then they just upped the ante for the next 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk about Sean Bean again soon because he's also in The Martian.
Oh, wow. I will be honest, I don't remember him in The Martian at all.
Oh,
I
cool.
like that movie a lot. I've seen it several times, but I don't remember him in that.
All good. You'll be reminded very shortly because I believe it's coming up in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Excellent. Another Ridley Scott.
Back when he was still making good movies.
Yeah.
Lastly, we have Jonathan Pryce as a member of the IRA. He plays Seamus.
When he showed up, I was like, no way.
Yeah, Jonathan Pryce
He's
is awesome.
Yeah, he is.
He's in The Age of Innocence with Daniel Day-Lewis and Michelle Pfeiffer. Evita.
Oh,
He's
never saw Evita.
Also in a James Bond movie because he is Elliot Carver, the baddie in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh, nice.
Lucky bastard is married to Terry Hatcher in that film.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's also in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, he most certainly is.
Plays Governor Swan with an epic wig.
Oh, hell yeah.
David Mamet wrote the script for this movie. John has a love-hate relationship with him because he wrote my previous pick, The Untouchables.
Yeah.
He also wrote Hannibal, which is another crime against humanity, unfortunately.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Wow.
He's not doing well. But he did write the classic movie The Verdict, starring Paul Newman.
Oh, yeah,
Very good
that's a
film.
great one.
He also
Very
wrote
good.
About Last Night, Glengarry Glen Ross, The Edge, with Anthony Hopkins in it,
Oh, yeah.
and Wag the Dog.
Nice. I hear that's a good one. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. I always pair that one up with Primary Colors because they came out around the same time in the 90s.
Oh, sure.
And this movie, like we said, has great action, great car chases. The POV on these cameras is a very fresh take on car chases. I thought it was really creative how they set up all the cameras for these car chases.
Oh, yeah. Definitely shot very well.
Yeah, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about the cinematographer. Robert Frage, and apologies if I am mispronouncing your last name. He was the director of photography on this film. He was also the DP on 7 Years in Tibet, another gorgeous
nice.
movie. Yeah.
Yes.
Enemy at the Gates, movie with Jude Law in it, and Rachel Weisz.
Oh, yeah.
The Notebook,
Oh.
Hotel Rwanda, and Alpha Dog.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so he's a pretty good DP. And because of the awesome car chases and action in this film, of course, I want to talk about the stunt coordinator. He is Jean-Claude Laganese. Again, apologies. French is the hardest language for me. He did all the stunts in Paris in Mission Impossible Fallout,
Oh, very cool.
which is so badass because there's a really cool armored car chase scene in that film.
Hell yeah. And the motorcycle sequence is awesome, too.
Awesome. Yes. Oh my gosh. When Tom Cruise T-bones that car, it was so crazy.
Hell yeah.
When I was in the theaters, I screamed the first time I saw it because it was so shocking and out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah.
Fallout is so awesome.
Oh, it's absolutely the best Mission Impossible movie. I can't wait to start going through the Mission Impossible movies on this podcast.
Hell yeah. Except for number 2.
Except for number 2. We're going to skip that one. We're going to pretend it never happened.
Yep, it didn't.
I could see Sean Bean in that film for some reason, though.
Right? Yeah. I'm surprised he hasn't been in a Mission Impossible movie yet.
I know. Well, I guess it's because he was in a James Bond film.
Maybe.
But Jean-Claude Laganese was also the stunt coordinator on The Untouchables, a previous pick of mine.
The Intouchables or Untouchables?
Oh, yes, good qualification. The Intouchables, the
Oh, okay.
movie based on a true story about the man who is in a wheelchair.
Yes. That was a good one.
That was a good one. You hate The Untouchables, but The
Yeah.
Intouchables is great.
Intouchables is a very good movie. Then it was remade with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston, and I
Don't watch
never
that
saw
film. No, The Intouchables was my pick for episode 66.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
It really was. I can't believe it.
We're coming up on almost 100 episodes.
I
ago
know.
on that one.
That's bonkers. Jean-Claude did all the stunt coordination for the car chases in Hitman. He was a stunt driver in Amélie, one of your previous picks.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
And he was also, speaking of James Bond, Roger Moore's stunt driver in A View to a Kill, a James Bond movie.
Hey. All right.
John Frankenheimer was the director on this film. Badass name, by the way. Frankenheimer. Actually,
Definitely a cool fucking name.
that could be a badass metal band name. Frankenheimer!
Yeah. We're just getting metal band names from names now. People's real first and last names. Somebody at the bar the other day said something about somebody's name. And like, that'd be a cool name for a band. And I was like, a metal band. I can't remember what the name was. I'll try and think about it that
trying
way.
to remember, but I think that's our new Easter egg for 2025.
I think so, yeah. Just come up with new metal band names.
Uh-huh. John Frankenheimer also directed the OG, The Manchurian Candidate, the first one.
Oh.
Grand Prix, The Iceman Cometh, The French Connection 2, which actually has pretty good reviews.
Oh.
Oh,
yeah, there is a sequel
I've
to
never
that
seen it, but it actually isn't completely panned, so.
There you go. That's good.
He also directed Black Sunday, which is based on a book by Thomas Harris, the same guy who wrote The Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and John Frankenheimer also directed The Island of Dr. Moreau and the masterpiece Reindeer Games.
Hey!
Yeah.
I haven't seen either of those, but I've listened to the How Did This Get Made Reindeer Games, and it sounds like a terrible movie.
Oh, it's an awful film.
Island of Dr. Moreau, never saw that one either. Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando.
Yeah, bad.
Crazy.
And this film has a really great tone to it, and it is in fact purposeful. The art department was instructed to get props with mute colors, and all of the extras were not allowed to wear any bright colored clothes.
Oh, cool.
Almost all of the scenes in the movie were shot on location with the exception of 2.
Really?
Yes, the opening scene inside the bar was used on a set.
Wow, that's a really good set.
Yeah, and the way they were able to hide it is they used the same couple walking past the camera as they did on the exterior shot of the bar.
Ah,
which is pretty
nice.
brilliant. Yeah. The other one was a sequence between Sam and Vincent, Robert De Niro and Jean Reno in the car.
Oh, cool.
There are actually 3 people in this movie who are in James Bond films.
Nice.
Sean Bean, as I said, was in GoldenEye. Jonathan Pryce was in Tomorrow Never Dies. And Michael Lonsdale, the long-haired man with all the miniatures.
Oh, yeah.
He's the bad guy in Moonraker.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so lots of James Bond connections in this film. And as we said, this is a heist movie. What they're trying to steal is a metal case. It's a silver briefcase.
Yeah.
That makes this briefcase a very good example of a MacGuffin.
Ah.
A MacGuffin is a plot device that was, well, originally it was often used by Alfred Hitchcock. But a MacGuffin is an object that serves to drive the plot forward in a movie without having importance in itself. So what the MacGuffin is far less important than the fact that it exists.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, a lot of times the MacGuffin isn't even identified in terms of what it is. So for an example, the stolen money in Psycho, that is a really important plot device, but nobody gives a shit about what that is.
Right.
But one of your previous pick, the letters in transit in Casablanca. Those drive the plot forward, but nobody ever thinks about those.
Very true.
The Maltese Falcon, the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. We never know what's inside that.
Oh, yeah.
The rug in The Big Lebowski, and Rosebud in Citizen Kane.
Really tied the room together.
Yeah, those are all examples of a MacGuffin.
Fascinating. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. I just love the word, too.
Yeah, MacGuffin is a fun word.
Yeah. And
MacGuff.
The last person who makes up this crew, his name is Larry, and the actor who plays Larry is named Skip Sudduth.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Mm-hmm. He requested to do his own stunt driving during the car chases, which is cool because he was actually the driver in the crew.
Right.
And John Frankenheimer, the director, agreed, but he told Skip Sudduth, "I don't want to see any brake lights." I was like,
oh,
well,
cool.
That's badass.
Yeah.
Trust me, as a former stunt driver, I would love to get those instructions.
That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, and the stunt driver who doubled for Robert De Niro was actually former Formula One driver Jean-Pierre Jarret, and he was a great driver, so that was really cool to learn that piece of trivia.
Hell yeah. I don't know who that is, but that's awesome.
But he wasn't the only stunt driver because, in fact, 300 stunt drivers were employed for the final chase scene of this film.
300?
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. Wow.
Super badass.
That's insane.
And I mentioned before that the vehicle count was higher than the body count in this film. That's because a total of 80 vehicles were destroyed during the making of this movie.
Nice.
Which is probably one of the reasons why it had a budget of $55 million.
55 mil. Wow.
Lots of stunts, lots of on-location shootings. Thank God the mayor of Paris gave them carte blanche when it came to filming all these car chase scenes, which is so badass.
That is killer.
For sure. And so that is Ronin, a classic car chase favorite of mine. I'm so glad you were willing to revisit it. Thank you. I know I didn't mention this before, but I loved the chemistry between Robert De Niro and Jean Reno. They made such good friends in this film.
Oh, hell yeah.
I would have loved to see them in other movies together.
That would have been so cool. There's still time. We never know.
More action films with Jean Reno and Robert De Niro. Let's make it happen.
Yes. 80-year-old heist guys.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I don't think there's still time, unfortunately. But yes, Ronin has been a favorite of mine for a quite long time, as well as, like I said, my sister introduced me to this film, and my father, especially because at one point there's a figure skater in this film played by real-life figure skating Olympic champion Katharina Witt.
Oh, very cool.
She's from Germany. She won 2 gold medals in ice skating. And my dad's always been a huge fan of hers. So when we watched this for the first time together, he was like, oh my God, it's Katharina Witt. So I just thought that was so random and cool. But yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, but yes, Ronin had a $55 million budget. In the U.S., it only made $41 million.
Oh, damn.
And worldwide, it only pulled in $70.7 million. So.
Oh, damn.
It wasn't a box office bomb, but it certainly wasn't successful, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. That's too bad. My dad introduced me to it, too. He was the one that was like, you should watch this movie, Ronin. I think you really like it. And, you know, I was young and was like, all right, yeah, I'll check it out.
He was kind of right.
Yeah, definitely.
You enjoyed it. You didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah, but now I definitely enjoyed it more. I texted him. I was like, oh, I just finished Ronin for the second time, and it's better than I remember. He goes, yeah, that movie's great.
Oh, good.
Yeah, fathers are fans.
Yeah, and tell your dad that I'm the one who picked it so I can get more in his good graces.
There you go.
So yes, that is Ronin. You can rent it right now on most streaming services. Highly recommended, especially because it's such an underrated film. One of those movies I'm happy to introduce to people. And like I said, it really toes the line between drama and action and heist movies. So if you're a fan of either of those 3 genres, I think there's something in there that you'd really like.
I completely agree with that. Definitely worth the watch.
And so I think it's time for us to make a pretty big right turn and talk about your car chase movie this week.
Oh, yes, let's jump into it. This movie comes to us from the year 2017. This will be my 3rd film from the year 2017. I did Coco recently and Wonder Woman. 2017 had some good movies. When we get into the highest grossings of the year, it's going to be one of those moments, I think, for a lot of people. They'll be like, oh, wow, I forgot that movie came out that year. But let's get into my pick before we do that. This movie is titled Baby Driver. This is written and directed by Edgar Wright. This is my 2nd Edgar Wright directed film, as I did Hot Fuzz several months ago.
Yeah, you did.
Great movie. This movie's a bit different than Hot Fuzz, although there's a lot of car chases and a lot of police involved in this movie as well as Hot Fuzz. This is not a straight comedy. This is more of an action, not super funny movie. There are some moments that are very entertaining, and there are some funny moments, but overall, I would say that this is a solid action movie.
Agreed.
And I love this movie. My wife and I went and saw it opening weekend at the ArcLight on Sunset Boulevard. We both loved it. Not only was I just like completely into seeing this movie because I love Edgar Wright, but I love Lily James, who's also in this movie, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Spacey, John Hamm, and Jamie Foxx. Also, Isa Gonzalez is in this movie. She was most recently in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah.
She's in Godzilla vs. Kong, which is awesome. Big fan of hers. John Hamm, we all know from, of course, Mad Men and Bridesmaids and The Town with his terrible Boston accent. Oh, and I also just watched Ambulance with Isa Gonzalez. That was the one I watched with her, Jake Gyllenhaal. Pretty good movie, I gotta say. Ambulance was a lot of fun. This movie also stars Ansel Elgort. He plays Baby. We also have John Berthnall, who we just discussed in your previous pick a few weeks ago of Wind River. He is a great character actor. He's probably the only, next to Jamie Lee Curtis, good actor that was on the show The Bear. Never really continued watching that, and we got into that not too long ago. But anyway, Baby Driver, I'll break it down for you as quickly as I can without spoiling anything, because we did forget to mention that we do not do spoilers here at Movies You Miss Podcast if you are brand new to us here at the year 2025.
That's right.
So, Baby Driver starts out with a bank heist, and Baby is the getaway driver. He also has tinnitus from a previous car accident when he was much younger, so he's always got earbuds in his ears, and he's always listening to music to drown out the humming that he has to deal with. With Baby's tinnitus, there are scenes in this movie where he's not listening to music, and if you have a good sound system, you can hear the ringing of his tinnitus in the back. So there's a lot of really cool things going on with audio and music and action in this movie, and we'll definitely get into that in a little bit. So Baby has tinnitus. He's always listening to music. Just kind of keeps him at an even keel. And we meet Kevin Spacey later on, who plays Doc. He's the mastermind of all of these heists. The main reason why Baby is driving for Doc is because Doc caught him several years prior to us meeting Baby and everybody in this movie, trying to steal his car. Baby, as we learned throughout, very, very quick exposition, but I think it's done very brilliantly. It's not like there's some, 5 to 10 minute moment where we're like getting a montage of all of Baby's previous, indiscretions and whatnot. He was definitely a juvenile delinquent. His parents were killed when he was very young. He has an adopted father now who's a deaf man in a wheelchair. And I like that actor. He actually is unfortunately succumbed to a wheelchair and deaf. So Baby is pretty much thinking that he's on his last job for Doc. And of course, Baby says, so after this, I'm done. And then Doc says, after this last job, we're straight. So that's never really, what you want to necessarily hear. But Baby thinks that maybe we're straight means that he can finally move on, take the money that he's been paid for all of these heists that he's been doing over the years for Doc and with a different team every time, and just kind of hit the road and, become free of this life that he's been involved in. He ends up meeting Deborah at a diner played by Lily James. I just love her so much, not only just in this movie, but just in every movie that she's been in. I really like a lot of her work. She's the best live-action Cinderella. She's in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. She's in Iron Claw from last year, where she plays Zac Efron's wife. She's fantastic in that movie. Big fan. So after Baby meets Deborah at this diner, he's starting to think that maybe he's, going to hit the road with her. They're going to take off and, never look back, basically. He's out to dinner one night with Deborah, sees Doc there. Doc pays for his dinner and pretty much tells Baby that he's got one job left that he really needs Baby for. It's going to give him a whole lot of money. This time he can take all of his cut instead of having to pay a percentage of it back to Doc. And, of course, Doc drops the whole, if you say no, then I'm going to have to break your legs and kill everybody that you love. And I would say this is formulaic. There's nothing necessarily new here, right? We've seen this kind of thing before. So, of course, Baby does relent and decides that he's going to help out. This is when Jamie Foxx's character is introduced. He plays Bats. He's
God,
fucking awesome in this movie. I completely forgot he was in this movie. I've owned this movie. I got it for Christmas that year, and I've probably watched it 2 or 3 times. I love this movie, but it's not one of those movies that I'm constantly watching. Mm-hmm. It's like I revisit this movie every few years. Now, we are in 2025. This movie's now 8 years old. Like I said, saw it in theaters with my wife. I probably have watched it 3 or 4 times at home. Now, this could be the 5th time. I completely forgot Jamie Foxx was in it. So when he shows up and he starts doing his thing, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed it. And apparently, Edgar Wright is not big on letting a lot of actors improvise. He likes his cast to really stick to the script. But he let Jamie Foxx riff. So a lot of Jamie Foxx's dialogue is ad-libbed by Jamie Foxx.
Awesome. I'm surprised by that fact, though, because you'd think Simon Pegg would do a lot of...
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, I thought like a lot
improvisation.
of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz was improvised, but apparently not. Like a majority of it was written in the script. But also, Simon Pegg wrote both of those movies with Edgar Wright. So
true.
That could have been what that was all about. So after we meet Bats, we're still hanging out with the same characters from before. We have Buddy, played by John Hamm, Darling, played by Isa Gonzalez, and Doc, of course, Kevin Spacey. And for the rest of the movie, after they begin this pre-production of this final heist, we are along for the ride with Baby to see if he's going to finally get out or if he's going to be stuck in this life forever. This movie is full of fantastic car chases, car sequences. There's a moment where they try and rob an armored truck that goes awry. We'll get into that scene in a minute because it is one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie. Before all of the crazy action goes down, and we'll also get into a lot of the stunts, but the practical driving, spectacular in this movie. There is a sequence in a back alley that just like this glide slide, thing that Baby does. Absolutely killer. This was a great revisit for me because I don't think I've watched this movie in the last at least 4 or 5 years. So it's been a long time. And again, I've had the Blu-ray since 2017's Christmas. My wife is a big fan of this movie. She watched it with me. It was a great revisit, and I forgot a lot about the movie too. Like I completely I knew the gist of like him trying to get out, but the whole process, that final 45 minutes of the movie, I completely forgot about. So I had a great time revisiting. V, I don't know how many times you've seen it, but I know you've had a lot of reservations about the movie in the past when we've talked about it. So I'm curious what your revisit was like.
Yes, this was my 3rd time watching this film. I watched it after it came out, probably in 2018 or 19. I love 3/4 of this film. I think it's fresh. I think it's an original take on heist movies, on car chases. The opening is killer. It's one of my favorite openings of a movie ever. Second to only The Dark Knight for
Oh,
similar
yeah.
reasons, because The Dark Knight has a badass opening too.
Hell yeah.
I thought Ansel Elgort was great in the film when I first watched it. I thought he was the only person who could actually look cool while singing along to a song in the beginning of this film. And it opens up with a bang that really just gets the audience member into their seat and is like, okay, strap in and be ready, because this is the kind of movie you're going to be watching. And I thought there were some really great twists on what could be considered a very common movie plotline, which is a heist movie with car chases, which is what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah.
However, the last 40 minutes of this movie goes off the rails completely. And I have always wondered if production got involved, if somebody in an office from one of the production companies came down and had this movie re-edited to be more Hollywood, to be more commercialized, because I feel like it's a completely different movie.
Huh, interesting.
So that's why I have a lot of reservations about revisiting this film, is because I love the first 3/4 of it, and then I absolutely hate the ending. I think it's so cliche. I think so many of the characters do things that are uncharacteristic of what they've done for the first part of this movie, and so it comes out of nowhere, and it really pisses me off, because I'm like, you almost had it. You almost had this fantastic film, and then you shit the bed on the landing. Like, what are you doing? Right. Yeah, and so it's a bit frustrating for me, but otherwise, yes, this is a great film. I think the music in it is fantastic and really introduced me to a lot of great songs.
Oh yeah.
Jon Bernthal and Jon Hamm together. Oh my God, they're both so hot. I love them on a crew together. And the exchange between Jon Bernthal and Baby in the beginning of this film, after the opening and after this first heist that we get introduced to all of them with.
Yes.
I love that interaction when he's like, "Is he slow?"
Oh yeah, yeah.
Doc is like, "Well, was he slow?"
Right,
like,
yeah.
No, he's a badass driver.
He wasn't slow.
And this interaction where Jon Bernthal steals Baby's sunglasses, and then Baby goes into his pocket and pulls out another pair, right? And this interaction goes on, and Baby just keeps pulling sunglasses out of different parts of his jacket, and it's just really
that was pretty sweet.
Subtly hilarious, which I really liked. And there's another scene in the film a little bit later on with Jamie Foxx, and I agree with you. I love him in this movie. That shows from Baby's perspective, and I just loved the creative ways of telling this story and telling us more about this character, where Baby's has headphones in and Doc is going through exactly what the heist is that they're going to be doing the next day and the instructions, right? And the subsequent scene is so fun. I really enjoyed that scene. It's actually one of my favorite scenes of the whole film. And then yes, before one of the heists, when they have a problem with the masks, is absolutely the funniest scene of the whole movie.
Definitely.
It
so
was Michael
funny.
Myers. No, the other Michael Myers.
The other Mike Myers. It's a Halloween mask. This is
a Halloween mask. I love that scene so much.
I forgot about that scene. Oh man,
it's
so
so great.
Funny.
But that's what I'm talking about. Is it's fresh and it's such a great new take, and the acting is fantastic. The chemistry is good. You're really watching a lot of this movie from Baby's perspective. I love it, and then it just goes so cliche. I can't be a fan of this movie in a full sense completely because of it, and that's the most disappointing thing for me. But yeah, I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad other people can watch it, because of course they can have their own opinions on this movie and let us know who they agree with, me or John.
Yeah.
And so yes, it's a very fun film. I just can see how it could have been so much better, and so that's what makes me a bit sad.
I gotcha. I can understand that. And maybe that's why I kind of forget most of the final 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was funny when you said that, when you were like, "Oh, I forgot the ending of this film." I'm like, yeah, because it sucks.
Yeah, I think that could be kind of the thing. And there are certain things in the final even 5 minutes where I'm kind of like, oh, wow, I don't even remember this. Mm-hmm. And then it's happening and I'm like, huh. And I get it for story's sake and for the movie's sake. And I don't think Edgar Wright had a whole lot of studio interference. He started writing the movie in 1995. He finished the script in 2011, but in 2007 he was given an advance for it. So it's been swimming around in his head for almost 30 years. Well, we're now in 2025, so 30 years ago he started the genesis of the idea for Baby Driver. And yeah, he just took it pretty much all the way through. I think because of the success of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, studio was just kind of like, dude, have fun,
Right.
and get something done and make it fun. And it definitely is a fun movie. Like, completely, you can't not say that it's not fun, because it absolutely is.
Oh, it absolutely is. You're right. Yeah.
I wish that I could drive like that. And the really impressive thing is that for a month before shooting, Ansel Elgort did train to become a stunt driver so that he could do his own driving in this movie, which he did.
It is badass, and that is a great call out, because there are a lot of wide shots and Ansel is driving, and so thank you for that reminder that yes, he was in the driver's seat a lot in this movie, which made it even more badass.
Yeah, there are a couple instances where the driver is on the roof of the car, and a lot of it is.
Of course.
There's definitely that. But when I was watching the making of on the Blu-ray, the documentary of making this movie is badass.
Really?
And just it's really cool. It's like it's about an hour long.
Okay.
And all the training videos that Ansel is doing, like he's doing the donuts and stuff, like trying not to hit the cones and whatnot. Apparently, the stunt driver that he was driving with and training with, said that he was one of the better ones that he's had in a long time. And John Hamm also did a lot of his own driving in this movie. So both of those guys trained for a month before production for the wide shots mostly, and the practicality of driving the car as fast as they can. They did a really good job with that.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was very impressed to see that it wasn't all stunt driving. But there, the scene where that truck is driving along the wall, like that, obviously that is a practical shot.
Right.
But there are definitely rigs that were used for the interior shots and stuff like that. So it's a very fascinating documentary. If anybody has a copy of Baby Driver, it's definitely worth the watch. Not only for all of the stunt work and stuff like that, but Edgar Wright had his editor on set the entire time of production.
Oh, I love when that happens.
Yeah, me too. Christopher Nolan does it all the time. So many directors do it, and I think it's really important, especially so you can cut scenes together and show your cast, and that was the fun thing, watching Jamie Foxx see a cut scene that they had just shot while they were doing another one. They wrap one scene, they move on, and while they're moving on, the editor comes over with a computer and headphones and shows Jamie Foxx, this new cut scene. And the main reason for that is because this movie is entirely choreographed to music. Everything is choreographed to music. All the gunshots are with beats of songs, and so Elgort does like a bunch of different dance routines throughout his apartment, and as he's going into the diner and stuff like that, it is all choreographed to music, and the choreographer said that this was one of the most difficult choreographies that he's ever had to do. But the way that Edgar Wright had this movie down, not only in just storyboards, but when he sent the script to everybody, he sent iPods with it so that they could listen to the songs for the certain scenes that they were going to actually choreograph. Like, really, really intricate stuff. And there's another thing that's incredible about this movie. 2 locations were built: the interior of the apartment and the interior and exterior of the diner. Everything else is a practical location.
Okay. But that's the thing is, and that's what makes me so frustrated about this film, is because it's so creative, and I love the use of music in the movie, and they just screwed up the ending.
It happens, unfortunately it does, and it is what it is. It's still a fun movie, and maybe, I don't know how many times you would necessarily revisit it, but I think in like another few years it'll definitely be another watch for me.
Yeah, in a couple of years, if I'm over at your house and you're like, can we watch Baby Driver? I probably wouldn't say no.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's such a dilemma for me, though, because as most of our audience knows, the both of us love practicality in movies. We love practical effects. We love it when a movie uses as much realism as possible. And so on one end, I'm like, yeah, Ansel Elgort did a lot of his own stunt driving. How practical we could see him driving in these wide shots. But then as a former stunt person going, oh man, I wish they'd employed someone to drive that car, right? And so it's such an internal dilemma for me in my own head when it comes down to actors, quote unquote, doing their own stunts that they love to publicize in whenever a movie's coming out, of course. And so I've always had these really mixed feelings about it, because we can always tell, right? Because
definitely.
We're looking at movies going, oh yeah, that's a stunt person.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times the wide shot, like the stunt person's face or jaw is completely different. Mm-hmm. It's like certain scenes in True Lies that I watched a few months ago, like that is definitely not Schwarzenegger on that horse.
Yeah, the hair isn't quite right.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Or if like I was just watching the Santa Claus Claus 2, and there's a moment where Tim Allen is supposed to be looking at another version of himself, and the hair is just not right. And it's like, well, okay, I guess it's a kid's movie, and nobody's really watching this for the practicality of certain things, but it's very impressive. There were 150 cars used in this movie as well.
Hell yeah.
Like, over the course. And like you mentioned in Ronin, there was 300 stuntmen employed for a certain sequence in Ronin. I don't know how many were employed for a certain sequence in this movie, but there's a crazy freeway chase sequence in this movie. Not the opening one, although that one is badass. But there's another one that is like super, super fucking awesome. And just, I had my soundbar cranked, and I was just fucking loving it. And the music is good, too. Like, he picked some pretty damn good songs for this movie.
He did. He picked fantastic songs for this film. I highly recommend the soundtrack to anyone. Even if you just want to see if the vibe is what you're interested in before you watch the film, go on Spotify and or Apple Music and throw on Baby Driver soundtrack.
Not a bad idea. Good call. Oh, and just to touch on this a little bit, it's not really super important, but it's kind of cool. We were talking about Billy Crystal at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
This is the first R-rated movie to feature a Disney clip in it. And there's a very quick clip of Monsters, Inc. in this movie.
I was like, where is Billy Crystal coming in?
Yeah. There's a really quick clip of Monsters, Inc. in this movie. It happens early on where Baby is flipping through the channels, and I thought that when I watched this, I was like, oh, Monsters, Inc. And then reading the BTS and watching the documentaries, like, we got a license to use a Disney clip in an R-rated movie, which is never happens.
That's awesome. You know what? I really want more genre crossing like that. Put more Disney clips in rated R films.
Yeah, definitely. Why not?
That'd be so fun.
It would be. Now, going back to the funniest scene in the movie, the Mike Myers mask sequence, they were originally going to be Halloween Michael Myers masks. But there was a whole bunch of legal jargon that was going on where they could not get the licensing permission to use the Michael Myers Halloween masks. One of Edgar Wright's ideas was to use an Austin Powers mask, and he ended up getting in touch with Mike Myers, who plays Austin Powers, and told him about the scene, and Mike Myers thought the idea was great, and so that's how they got the permission to use an Austin Powers mask for that sequence, which I thought was pretty awesome.
For sure, and misunderstandings like that are one of my favorite comedic elements of any story.
Absolutely.
it's such a good scene.
It really is.
And Flea is in it. We haven't even talked about that.
Yes, Flea. That's right. I was going to talk about some of the musical cameos in this movie. Flea shows up as one of the guys. No, it's fine. Flea shows up as one of the guys for one of the heists. That heist for the armored car. Pretty hilarious. Big Boy from Outkast is in this movie, and Killer Mike is also in this movie. They have cameos because there's some songs from Big Boy and Killer Mike in this movie. So that was pretty cool. The way that's a couple of Easter eggs that Edgar Wright threw in there, which I thought was pretty awesome. I
love Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers when he shows up in films.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the only time he's ever done it, and
no.
He's great every single movie he shows up in.
He is hilarious. Yeah, I especially like him in Back to the Future Part 2.
Yes, that's what I was going to call out too.
Needles. Hey, McFly. So funny. Classic scene.
I can't wait until we cover the Back to the Future movies, because we are going to cover all three of them.
Yes, we are. We absolutely are. And Flea is great in The Big Lebowski as one of the nihilists, too. He's
yes.
We believe in nothing, Lebowski. Nothing. We believe in... No, we cut off your Johnson.
Speaking of The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, going back to the MacGuffin. MacGuffin? MacGuffin. Yep. Okay, I was going to say McGruff, but that's
a crime dog.
Crime dog. Yeah, Scruff McGruff. Take a bite out of crime. Yeah, I let that dog down quite a bit. Well, maybe not crime. No, I was not a criminal. Although I did smoke weed illegally, so I guess that's criminal activity, but considered criminal activity.
Man, he was pretty much a giant failure as a mascot for anti-drug campaigns in the 90s for us.
Same with the Lion of Dare. Like I
didn't even remember that mascot. I just remember the big red letters.
Yep, D-A-R-E.
What? You know what?
So lame.
If anyone listening has ever been offered free drugs by some ne'er-do-well like they threatened us with in the DARE programs in the 90s, let us know, because I sure as shit was never given drugs in my Halloween bucket.
Nope, neither was I. I think the only time I've ever had a sketchy drug encounter, but now I didn't buy anything because I was in a different country, but I was in the Bahamas on my honeymoon with my wife, and we were walking around outside of a church, and the Bahamas Nassau had just gotten hit with a bad hurricane, so everybody was trying to make money. They were trying to sell all their stuff. and some guy walked up to me and like showed me his he opened his palm and he had this massive bag of weed in his hand, and he was like, "Hey boy, you want to smoke some weed?" I'm like, "I kind of do actually, but I'm not going to. In the Bahamas, I'm on a cruise. I can't get arrested right now." The guy's like, "Try before you buy." And I'm like, "No, I'm okay.
That was a setup."
Okay. Yeah, I was like, "I'm not. No, thank you though."
I mean,
come on, man. I'm like, no.
Strangers offering you free drugs is a ghost story from the 90s. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Spoiler
Good
alert.
Times. Right? Now, going back to Baby Driver after our drug discussion.
Tangent.
Two other actresses that were considered for Deborah. One was Chloe Grace Moritz, and the other was Emma Stone. And I'm glad that it was Lily James, because, again, I'm a big fan of hers, and she's gorgeous. Not that Emma Stone is not, but Emma Stone went off to make a really terrible movie that year.
Yes.
And we're not going to mention it. So,
no, we're not. We mentioned it enough on the
podcast.
Yes. But I actually could have seen both Chloe and Emma Stone doing that.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think Emma Stone would have... I think they both would have knocked
Yeah, those are great alternatives.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Chloe Grace Moritz. I might have mentioned this in the past, but on a Funny or Die project, and she was really, really cool.
Lily Collins would have been good, too.
Yeah, I could see Lily Collins. Yeah, she's not bad. I've only ever seen her in Mirror, Mirror, which I know a lot of people dump on that movie, but I remember it was okay. I thought it was a lot of fun. Maybe because I was really stoned when I watched it.
Speaking
but I did go
drugs.
to the theaters to see it. Yeah, speaking of drugs, got really high to go see Mirror, Mirror. I mean, those types of movies, you got to be on something. This is my last bit of info before we jump into the box office and release date, etc. This movie was mostly shot on film.
Yes.
Yeah, some digital, of course, for close-ups and GoPros were used, but majority, I would say, they were saying between like 80 and 90% of this movie was shot on film stock.
Great.
Yeah. And Edgar Wright ended up interviewing a whole list of ex-cons for this movie while he was in the process of writing it, because he wanted it to be as true to heists as possible. And I think he did a pretty damn good job. Not that I've been involved in heist, but I think it's still pretty awesome.
Yeah, it seemed very real.
Now, this movie came out in the UK and in the US on the same day of June 28th of 2017. Since Edgar Wright is a British director, this came out in the UK as well as the US.
Makes sense.
Why not? Yeah, the budget for this was $34 million.
Okay, nice.
Not bad.
No.
Not bad. Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, and John Hamm probably had the bigger paychecks
Agreed.
of the cast in this movie.
Yeah.
The domestic box office intake was $107.8 million.
Yeah, this movie did great. It is...
Yeah, it was very popular.
It's not underrated. I just think it's more forgotten.
Yes, it definitely is a forgotten movie, so perfect for the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worldwide box office was $226.9 mil. So they made their money back for sure. And
Wow.
Edgar Wright and everybody was very happy with it. And again, I was too, and I still am. So that is Baby Driver. Came out again 2017. Let's get into some of the highest grossing films of 2017, even though I've done the year before twice with Wonder Woman and Coco. Highest grossing film, the worst, yes, worst Star Wars movie ever made, The Last Jedi.
No, it was the worst Star Wars movie ever made until The Rise of Skywalker came out.
I didn't hate The Rise of Skywalker as much as I hated Last Jedi. I kind of liked the way they went with Rise of Skywalker, but then I watched it at home on on streaming, and I was like, yeah, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker are definitely some of the worst ones.
We've talked about this before. That's another reason why I'm a Trekkie, because Star Wars has such inconsistent films.
Yeah, that's true. Second highest grossing film, Emma Watson in the live-action/CGI version of Beauty and the Beast.
Evermore will still be one of my favorite Disney songs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Number 3, a past pick of mine, Wonder Woman. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I like over the first one, which I know is a very unpopular opinion.
Yeah, that's a hot take.
But that is just mine, and it's all good. All opinions are valid. Number 5, Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 6, It. Number 7, Thor Ragnarok, which I have finally come around to. I like number 3, but I still think Dark World is a little bit better. And we won't talk about the fourth one because that one was a pile of garbage.
Best descriptor.
Number 8, Despicable Me 3. Number 9, the R-rated Marvel film Logan, which is a badass movie.
Yes, it is. And then was completely desecrated by Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yes.
In the best way possible.
Fantastically, though. Yeah, so good.
Speaking
I love the
of,
opening of Deadpool.
Actually, speaking
Wolverine.
of great openings.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Deadpool and Wolverine has a fantastic opening.
Oh, my God. I haven't seen the movie since theaters. I need to rewatch it.
Oh, wow. I watched it once at home. I saw it 2.5 times because I fell asleep the first time a lot.
Yeah.
Number 10, The Fate of the Furious, which I think I saw once. That's the 9th one or the 8th one?
No, 8, because Fate. Okay. Get it?
Fate. Oh, got it.
Charlize Theron and a submarine.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
Number 11, Justice League. Number 12, Christopher Nolan's war masterpiece, Dunkirk. Number 13, Coco. Number 14, a great movie, the Lego Batman movie.
Yes.
Number 15, Get Out. In my opinion, Jordan Peele's only good movie as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
Number 17, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which I'm a big fan of. That is the 5th installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
So many Pirates movies.
Yes, and apparently we're getting a few more.
I was just going to say. Yeah.
Number 18, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, which was a lot of fucking fun.
Yes. We're pairing the OG Jumanji with that movie at some point in the future.
Hell yes. Number 19, V, your favorite in the Monarch series of films, Kong Skull Island.
Yes.
Number 20, Hidden Figures. 21, Cars 3. Number 23, James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy in M. Night Shyamalan's Split. Great movie. Number 24, Transformers The Last Night, which I did not mind. I thought that was all right. Number 25, the best and greatest Star Wars film, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
Agreed.
Number 29, Girls Trip, which is hysterical. Number 33, Daddy's Home number 2, which was okay. I'm not a big fan of Will Ferrell, but that one was all right. I like him and Mark Wahlberg together, so I think that's why it worked.
Mel Gibson was fucking hilarious in that film.
Yeah, he was. He was damn funny. Number 34, Murder on the Orient Express. Number 36, John Wick Chapter 2. Number 37, Blade Runner 2049. Number 39, Power Rangers with Elizabeth Banks. Number 41, a favorite of ours, The Hitman's Bodyguard.
Yeah.
Number 42, Alien Covenant. 44, Bad Moms Christmas. Number 48, a movie that you and I just watched recently with Zac Efron and Dwayne Johnson, Baywatch.
Yeah, we did just watch that recently.
Hell yeah. Number 52, V, your pick for our second ever episode here at Movies You Missed podcast, Atomic Blonde.
Yay!
Number 55, a movie I introduced you to that you absolutely fell in love with. My wife got me the soundtrack on vinyl last Christmas. Hugh Jackman in The Greatest Showman.
That might be one of our bigger fights in terms of who does that film on this podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's probably going to be me because I introduced you to it.
I know that it's a valid claim.
Yes, it is. Number 67, the great and should have remained only a single standalone movie, but the sequel came out this year, Moana.
Yeah, I cannot believe how many box office records the sequel just broke.
I know. It's pretty impressive. And, again, I understand why people like it, but it was lackluster. Mm-hmm. Number 71, Guy Ritchie's take on King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, which I was a fan of. I thought that one was pretty sweet.
It's not terrible.
It's definitely not terrible, but it's not great either.
Exactly.
Number 72, an installment in the Saw series Jigsaw, which I just rewatched, and it's okay. I don't think we really needed it, but I'm a big Saw fan, so I'll watch them all the time, every year.
Like me with Scream.
There you go. Number 76, V, your pick 2 episodes ago of Wind River.
Yes, anytime we can mention that movie, let's do it.
Absolutely. Number 99, Rough Night with Scarlett Johansson and Kate McKinnon, which is a hilarious movie. If nobody has seen that, please check it out. It is hysterical.
I have never even heard of that film.
Oh, it's great. It's a bachelorette party, and they kill the male stripper, and they have to figure out what to do. They accidentally kill him. It's really fucking funny.
Kate McKinnon in it, you had me there, so
yeah,
I'm in.
And she plays an Australian woman, so that's even more hilarious.
Yes.
And the 31st highest-grossing film of 2017 coming in this week with my pick of Baby Driver.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you have not seen Baby Driver, it is currently streaming on Netflix. I watched my Blu-ray copy. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 142. Now, V, I'm curious, would you watch Ronin with your grandmother?
I would, actually. It's dialogue-driven enough where I think she'd really enjoy it. And like we said, there's some violence, but it's not graphic. There's no sex.
Yeah.
It's not a gratuitous movie in any sense of the word. And so you could be comfortable watching this movie with just about anyone in your family. I think mid-teens and above, just because it's so dialogue-driven and because they need to keep track of the plot and there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Sure.
But otherwise, yeah, you can watch this with anyone.
I agree.
And John, would you watch Baby Driver with your grandma?
I think my grandmother would have had a good time with it.
All right. Similar. I mean, it's a little bit more graphic violence, but nothing over the top and really cool car chase scenes. There's a little bit of romance, but no major sex scenes or anything in it.
No, none whatsoever. Sweet. Well, that is our episode of awesome car chase sequences in movies. That was a fun one. I'm excited for next week. V, do you want to tell everybody what we're doing next week?
Absolutely. We are going the comedic duo route. I chose one of my all-time favorite comedies. I'm so glad to be able to talk about this movie on our podcast. This stars Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. This is The Birdcage.
Nice. I've seen it one time, and I thought it was great.
My God, I can't even count how many times I've seen this film. I cannot believe you've only seen it once.
Yep, I've seen it one time, and I laughed entirely, so I'm excited to get back to it.
As you should, and if you want to follow along, you can watch it if you have an HBO Max subscription.
Oh, well, perfect. Then that's where I will watch it.
All right, and John, what did you pick for our buddy comedy episode next week?
I chose a movie from 1988 that my wife introduced me to. It's one of her favorite movies, starring Steve Martin and Michael Caine, directed by Frank Oz. This is Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, everybody. Great movie. I think we watch it once a year. So this will be the first time in 2025.
I love that movie so much. I'm so glad you picked it.
Me too. It's going to be great. And if you don't have a copy of it, it is streaming on MGM Plus. I will watch my wife's DVD copy.
The Birdcage is also streaming on MGM Plus. I just didn't mention it because, like we've said, we have not met a single person who has that
I've only done the free
streaming.
week. That's all I've done. Sorry, MGM Plus. Well, can't wait to get into it. Looking forward to a lot of laughs in the near future. And if you're new to Movies You Miss podcast, this is how we close out every episode. Film is a form of art, and in art all opinions are valid, except if you think.
The only good car chase scenes in movies happen in Fast and Furious films.
That is so true. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.